Imagine a world where the roar of the ocean is only matched by the roar of fierce warriors. The Vikings, a name that sends shivers down the spine of their enemies, are often remembered for their legendary explorations, impressive shipbuilding, and fierce battles. But beneath the surface of these awe-inspiring tales lies a much darker narrative, one that history books often gloss over. Much of what was considered normal in the Viking Age was, in truth, deeply disturbing. So, sit back and prepare yourself as we embark on a journey into the shadowy past of one of history's most formidable society. One of the darkest aspects of Viking society was their extensive use of slavery, taking it to levels of unimaginable cruelty. Slaves, known as thralls, were an integral part of Viking society. Captured during raids, men, women and children were taken captive and transported back to Viking territories. The journey for these captives was harrowing. Chained and shackled, they were forced to march long distances, often across treacherous terrain, to bustling slave markets in places like Dublin, Hedeby and Birka. Here, thralls were exchanged for goods and silver. Many believed that Vikings attacked monasteries solely for their treasures and disdain for Christianity, but the truth is more complex. While the riches were a bonus, the primary target was the monks. Literate and easy to control, monks were ideal candidates for slavery. The Vikings knew this and seized the opportunity. The fate of these monks was grim. Often castrated, they became eunuchs. In places like the Byzantine Empire and the Middle East, eunuchs were in high demand as teachers, harem guards, administrators and palace servants. The Vikings eagerly captured monks to sell them in these faraway lands. While some slaves were sold, others were kept for personal use. You might remember Athelstan from the Vikings series, who served Ragnar Lodbrok. Ragnar showed kindness and considered Athelstan a friend. However, in reality, Vikings were rarely as kind to their slaves. They had little protection under the law. If a slave was killed or injured, the only concern was compensating the owner, and burial was not always deemed necessary. The body could be left for animals. A chilling revelation shows that Vikings not only kept slaves, but also took them to the afterlife. They had a gruesome ritual where slaves were sacrificed when their masters died, ensuring they could serve them in their graves. These sacrifices were particularly disturbing. Slaves were decapitated and buried without their heads, a brutal practice meant to distinguish masters from their slaves. This dark part of Viking culture reveals a society where even in death, the powerful sought to maintain control, dragging their unfortunate slaves into the afterlife in a horrific manner. Now, let's talk about their pets. Their choices of pets might surprise you. While many households kept animals for practical purposes, such as dogs for hunting and herding, the Vikings also had a penchant for more unusual and dangerous pets. Bears. Yes, you heard that right. Bears were among the exotic pets that some Vikings kept. These weren't the small, manageable pets we think of today, but full-grown bears. The tradition likely stemmed from Norse mythology, where bears were considered sacred animals associated with strength, bravery, and the god Odin. Keeping a bear as a pet was seen as a status symbol and a testament to one's bravery and prowess. The process of acquiring a bear cub usually involved capturing it from the wild, often after killing the mother bear. These cubs were then raised in the household, growing up among the family and domestic animals. However, as they grew, these bears could become extremely dangerous. As crazy and wild as it sounds, pet bears were quite useful for keeping slaves in line and protecting the cattle. However, having a giant wild animal roaming almost free in a society posed significant dangers, leading many Viking settlements to levy heavy fines on families owning a bear or outright banning them. Still, some families would risk having them no matter what. Falcons and hawks were also popular among the Viking elite, used for hunting and as symbols of status and prestige. Falconry was a skill that required patience and expertise, and owning a well-trained bird of prey was a mark of nobility and high social standing. This connection with animals is evident in their mythology and art, where animals often symbolize various human attributes like courage, cunning, and loyalty. One of the more puzzling aspects of Viking society was the noticeable gender imbalance, with more men than women within their tribes. Typically, there might be 4 boys for every girl, and in the worst cases, the ratio could be as extreme as 9 to 1. This disparity has sparked much debate and research among historians. You might wonder if the Viking gene favoured male offspring, but the truth behind this imbalance is far more disturbing. Just like many other ancient cultures, the Vikings had a grim practice: infanticide. If a baby was born with deformities, if the family couldn't care for it, or if it was simply seen as inconvenient or a perceived weakness, it could legally be abandoned in the wilderness to die. This cruel act, known as bera ut, or to carry out, is mentioned frequently by many historians. Tragically, being born female could be seen as a weakness in Viking culture. Female infants were more often left to die than males. This disparity had darker implications. The shortage of women led to the practice of capturing women during raids, bringing them back as concubines or wives. This practice not only contributed to the gender imbalance, but also underscores the brutal aspects of Viking expansion. So, the imbalance of boys and girls in Viking households wasn't a matter of genetics, but a grim outcome of societal norms and harsh survival tactics. The Vikings were not only known for their seafaring and warrior skills, but also for their brutal methods of enforcing law and order. Their punishments were designed to instill fear and maintain control within their communities. Some of these methods were so horrifying that they have become legendary in their own right. One such brutal punishment was the practice of outlawry. Being declared an outlaw in Viking society meant that the person was no longer under the protection of the law. They could be killed by anyone without legal consequences, and their property was confiscated. Outlaws were forced to live in isolation, often struggling to survive in the harsh Scandinavian wilderness. This punishment was not only a death sentence, but a complete social ostracization. And then there was the absolute worst punishment: the blood eagle. This notorious execution method is famously linked to the Viking king Ragnar Lodbrok. After Ragnar was captured and killed by King Aella of Northumbria, his sons sought revenge. When they overthrew Northumbria, Ragnar's son, Ivar the Boneless, condemned Aella to the horrifying fate of the blood eagle, a fate worse than death. The victim's hands and legs were bound tightly to prevent any escape or struggle. The avenger would then stab the victim near the tailbone and cut upward, meticulously severing each rib from the spine. The result was a gruesome display of the victim's internal organs, but the torment didn't stop there. To intensify the pain, the Vikings would rub salt into the gaping wounds. This wasn't a metaphor. They used actual saline to increase the agony. Then, the ribs were spread out like giant fingers, giving the avenger access to the victim's lungs, which were pulled out to create the appearance of wings on the victim's back. This grotesque image is why it was called the Blood Eagle. According to the Orkneyinga saga, after Earl Einar defeated Halfdan in battle, he tortured him with a blood eagle. Similarly, Aella suffered this fate as an act of vengeance. So, we leave you with this haunting question. Was the blood eagle a horrific reality or just a terrifying legend? Either way, it remains one of the most feared and gruesome punishments in Viking lore. Yet, the Vikings' dark rituals did not end with the blood eagle. Every 9 years, the Vikings would gather at Uppsala for a grand festival to honour their gods. Located in what is now Sweden, Uppsala was the spiritual heart of the Norse pagan world, where the Vikings performed ceremonies to ensure the favour of their deities. These rituals, drenched in blood and mysticism, revealed a dark and brutal side to their spirituality. Adam of Bremen, a German chronicler, described the temple at Uppsala in vivid detail. It was said to be adorned with gold and housed statues of the Norse gods Thor, Odin and Freyr. The most disturbing aspect of the Uppsala rituals was how the Vikings honoured their gods. During this festival, 9 males of different species, including humans, were sacrificed. These sacrifices were meant to appease the gods and ensure the community's prosperity. The victims, both human and animal, were hung from the sacred trees surrounding the temple, their bodies left as offerings. In Norse mythology, Odin's quest for wisdom led him to sacrifice himself to himself. He plucked out his eye and threw it into Mimir's well, pierced his belly with his spear Gungnir, and hung himself on Yggdrasil, the world tree, for 9 days and 9 nights. To mirror Odin's sacrifice, the Vikings at Uppsala would hang their sacrificial victims, humans, horses, dogs and hawks, from the trees of the sacred grove. Modern pop culture often depicts these human sacrifices as willing volunteers, eager to die in hopes of earning a special place in Valhalla. However, both the sagas and archaeological evidence tell a much darker story. These sacrificial victims were often chosen based on their social status, as war captives or slaves, revealing a brutal aspect of Viking culture that is often overshadowed by tales of heroism and adventure. This paints a chilling picture of the lengths they would go to in their quest for divine favour. Thank you for joining us on this exploration of the dark secrets of Viking life. If you found this video insightful, please like and share it with others who might be interested in the hidden aspects of history. Your support helps us continue to uncover and share these incredible tales. So be sure to hit that notification bell to stay updated on our latest content. Until next time, stay curious and keep exploring the rich tapestry of human history.